Hello, and thank you for joining us for Northwest Newsweek. I'm Riley McManus. After 15 years of planning, fundraising, and numerous delays, cancer patients from around the region can use locally produced isotopes at the Thunder Bay Regional Hospital. The $10 million cyclotron project was completed in 2015, but it took another 6 years to get final approval from Health Canada. Jonathan Wilson reports.
It's a long-awaited announcement from the Regional Hospital and the Regional Research Institute as locally produced radioactive isotopes are now being sent to the local cancer center for diagnosing oncology patients. The first isotopes were actually delivered 5 months ago, but hospital officials held off until now to share the news.
We actually started delivering isotopes just to make sure the processes were in place. So we have a courier. So we can't just walk it across the parking lot. It's not allowed. You need a courier. So we have a courier. We started that on October 20th and would do runs. And then for the first month, so it was early November, I can't remember if it was November 1st or 2nd, that we actually used the isotopes from the cyclotron here in Thunder Bay and use those on patients here.
Manager of Diagnostic Imaging Sandra Wilson says cancer patients who come to the hospital from around the region can now be confident their appointments won't be cancelled due to issues with isotope shipments from southern Ontario.
We were dependent on it coming from Toronto or Hamilton prior to that. So we were reliant on flights and couriers, which always depended on weather and access and roads and so on. Having it here means it's far more reliable. Even in the midst of a snowstorm on Tuesday, the stuff got here right on time.
The cyclotron project was first proposed in 2007 and received millions of dollars in funding from Ottawa, the province, the city, and local donors. The massive unit was installed in 2015 and produced its first isotopes the following year. But since then, it's only been used for cancer research projects, as it didn't meet all the Health Canada requirements for cancer isotopes until late last year.
Yeah, no, absolutely frustrating for sure. I think there's a number of things that happened. We had some staff turnover, some senior leaders of the cyclotron itself. So it's not all, us just saying Health Canada was holding us up. We had to get the work done here at this end as well. So frustrating, but we had to make sure we did it right. We would never, ever sacrifice, patient safety to make sure that we got this to the finish line quick. We wanted to get to the finish line correctly.
Wilson says the local breakthrough will lead to quicker cancer diagnosis and better outcomes for patients, as the local cyclotron will not only be more reliable for isotopes, but will also produce more of them for local use each day.
Because it has such a short half-life, we could only get enough to do between 5 and 6 patients. Now, again, since it's around the corner, we can do up to 9 patients a day, and I believe that we're going to be able to get up to 10, which means we've basically doubled the number of patients that we're able to service in any given day.
Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
The emergency department in Red Lake had to be closed for 24 hours this weekend due to a shortage of physicians. The ER was unavailable from 8 a.m. Saturday until 8 a.m. Sunday. The closest emergency department is just over 200 kilometers away in Dryden. Hospital officials in Red Lake said people there should still call 911 for medical emergencies, but they suggested traveling to Dryden or calling telehealth for less urgent problems. Kiiwetinoong NDP member Sol Makama called on the province to immediately send resources to the hospital so the ER could remain open. Northwestern Ontario's lone Conservative MP is reacting to the deal announced Tuesday by the federal Liberals and the NDP. Eric Melillo says he has serious concerns about the Trudeau government agreeing to prioritizing NDP policy issues in exchange for keeping the Liberals in power until 2025. Mitchell Ringos has the details.
MP Eric Melillo says he is disappointed with the deal, saying it's not something Canadians voted for and no NDP candidates ran on a platform to essentially join the Liberal government. The confidence and supply agreement between Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh means the NDP will support the Liberals on specific measures and with conditions and will not vote to defeat the government. The parties agreed to work on 7 key policy areas, including health, climate change, and affordability, but Melillo says he does not trust this coalition to move forward on these matters.
Since I've been elected in 2019 and we were in a minority situation, the NDP have been saying they were going to force the Liberals and pressure on the Liberals to deliver on a number of promises, many of which are included there. And they haven't done that to this point. So I have no reason to believe that this is actually going to manifest itself into any results for Canadians.
As for his Conservative Party, Melillo says they will have their new leader in place in September, as they are currently undergoing a leadership race, which will guide them into the future.
I think especially so after that, we're going to continue to hold the government to account, bring forward new ideas, and really be I guess, the only true opposition in the House of Commons now that the other major opposition party is in essence giving up their ability to hold the government to account.
Mitchell Ringos, TBT News.
Highway 11 in Greenstone was closed for just over 5 hours Tuesday after a serious collision between two transport trucks. OPP say one of the transports rear-ended the other one at around 9 a.m. on the highway between Jellicoe and Geraldton. One of the rig drivers suffered non-life-threatening injuries, but no other details were available. Both lanes were closed to allow emergency crews to work, with the highway reopening just before 3 o'clock that afternoon. A few details have been made available, but one person is in custody for arson following a house fire in Red Rock. The property had just been sold by the town in a tax sale one day earlier. The fire call came in shortly before 11 a.m. on March 18th regarding a home engulfed in flames on Red Rock Road number 4. Firefighters were able to douse the flames and keep the structure standing. However, the building was effectively gutted. Several large propane tanks were pulled away from the building to prevent any explosions. Investigators with the Ontario Fire Marshal's office were on scene until Monday, trying to determine the cause of the fire, along with the OPP who monitored the crime scene. An OPP spokesperson says one suspect is in custody and charges of arson are pending. Council in Terrace Bay was in session again on Monday and saw the adoption of a motion that will change procedures for meetings, bringing it in line with many other communities across the Northwest. As well, the town received a planning update on its upcoming 75th anniversary. Ryan Benazzo has the details.
Starting at the next council meeting and at every meeting thereafter, there will be an acknowledgement of the lands upon which the community resides. Terrace Bay Mayor Jody Davis says land acknowledgements are standard at many meetings and events in Ontario.
And certainly understanding the importance and the relevance of the Indigenous people in Canada. And we're a little slow even in formalizing our response to the beginning of the meetings and recognizing the role and importance of Indigenous people, and we are going to do that.
Davis spoke with fellow Mayor Wendy Landry, who provided him with her council's land acknowledgement. Davis says Terrace Bay will use the same language. Council also got an update this week on this year's 75th anniversary plans. Organizer Gary Aduno says the central theme is about commemorating the past and celebrating the future. It will start with a special event in the Simcoe Plaza.
With our opening ceremonies, opening time capsule that was done 25 years ago for the 50th. And really kind of meet downtown, which was kind of one of the key projects to the revitalization of our community. And then the end of the weekend, we're going to finish off down at our beach waterfront project.
Davis says he's excited for August and notes there's still a bit of a situation to deal with to make everything run smoothly.
One of our biggest problems is going to be, and what a problem to have, is finding locations for all the campers that want to come and camp here.
Terrace Bay's 75th anniversary celebration will take place from August 18th to the 21st. Ryan Benazzo, TBT News.
Over 10% of Deer Lake First Nation residents are considered active cases of COVID-19. The spike in virus numbers prompted Team Rubicon to head to the remote community to help residents while they isolate. The Sioux Lookout First Nation Health Authority reported over 100 cases in Deer Lake this week, for a community of 1,100 on reserve. Team Rubicon, a veterans-led disaster response organization, arrived in the community last Wednesday. They worked with the Canadian Rangers and community leaders on incident management, as well as cutting firewood and delivering essential goods, including food. Team Rubicon's Eric Goodwin says the community appears deserted, based on the restrictions put in place by Chief and Council.
All people are adhering to the recommendations that they remain inside their houses isolated. And that, again, is one of the reasons that Team Rubicon had to come in at such short notice. In order that for people to remain quarantined, they require essentials, life essentials, and that's what we're here to provide.
Team Rubicon's crews departed Deer Lake on Friday, but the Canadian Rangers and a First Nations healthcare team called NOMAT will be staying in the community until the COVID outbreak subsides. Kiiwetinoong MPP Sol Mamakawa says public health officials in the north should have been consulted before the province decided to lift nearly all pandemic restrictions. At Queen's Park Monday, Mamakawa specifically referenced the sky-high COVID-19 rate in Deer Lake First Nation and asked how the Ford government plans to support that community and others in the north that are still struggling. But the response focused on supports the government already has in place.
Deer Lake First Nation is in a major COVID outbreak. The number of cases is now 275. Their population is 1,200 people. 275 is 23% of their population. Northern public health officials wrote this government last week and asked for resourcing for medical assistant teams to support Northern First Nations like Deer Lake that are in crisis.
Question.
How will you support this request?
We've invested $37 million in supporting Indigenous services during COVID-19, and that includes $16.4 million to help with the distribution of goods, transportation support for urban Indigenous people, self-isolation, prevention awareness, and pandemic planning, $10 million to ensure continuity of services offered by Indigenous social services agencies to vulnerable children, youth, adults, families during the outbreak, $4 million to ensure continuity of services at remote and northern airports serving Indigenous communities, $7.4 million to help social service providers, charities, and not-for-profits delivering critical housing services to Indigenous people living off reserve.
Masking requirements were lifted Monday in most indoor settings in Ontario, but the medical officer of health for the Northwestern Health Unit is recommending people in that area continue taking precautions as she worries about an increase in cases and hospitalizations. Dr. Kit Young Hoon notes that they have been seeing their overall positivity rate improve in the past few weeks, as it currently sits at 15.9% as of Friday. Despite the downward trend, Young Hoon says her catchment area still exceeds the provincial COVID rates. And with Omicron still spreading, Young Hoon says a focus on vaccination and access to treatment is essential, along with her advice to continue masking.
Because of the higher risk in our region, I would generally recommend at a sort of higher level that people choose to mask over not masking in indoor public settings.
Young Hoon adds that with the Sioux Lookout area still seeing large number of cases, they have now revised the case reporting table to include on and off reserve numbers for the Sioux Lookout Health Hub to help the public better understand the risk in their communities. When we come back, the province is taking input from residents in and around Lake of the Woods as it looks to solve the population decline in the walleye stocks. The walleye population in Lake of the Woods has been monitored by officials since 1979. The Big Lake is both an interprovincial and international body of water and supports dozens of commercial and recreational fishery businesses. But the walleye numbers have been dipping over the years, and as a result, the province has launched a series of public meetings on how to address the situation. Adam Riley has more.
Officials who monitor walleye numbers on Lake of the Woods say they have narrowed down what they believe to be the cause of a population decline in the species.
The harvest in the recreational fishery is high enough on its own through our monitoring data to be a cause for concern and require discussion. We note that the majority of the observed walleye mortality, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about mortality, which is the death rate, can be directly attributed to our recreational harvest.
Gathering the data of both the biomass and the mortality of walleye in the lake from surveys conducted pre-pandemic, researchers have placed the walleye population of Lake of the Woods in the category of overfished and experiencing overfishing. And the lake sits alone from two other comparative lakes in the region, Lac Seul and Rainy Lake.
The biomass of the Lake of the Woods walleye stock is lower than the amount we'd expect to see for a healthy lake, and this threshold is called a fisheries reference point. Mortality is higher than we'd expect for a healthy stock. We also observe a lower number of old, big fish when compared to large recreational walleye fisheries, such as Rainy Lake.
As a result of the findings, an advisory council made up of representatives from the area has put forth a proposal that will see changes in the limits for Lake of the Woods.
All anglers on Lake of the Woods will be treated with the same set of regulations, and that they would have this differential limit between what they can catch in one day and what they can possess.
The information session ended with a question and answer period from members of the public, allowing officials to answer questions not covered by the presentations or to elaborate on their findings. Another virtual session is scheduled for the evening of March 29th. However, there is hope for in-person sessions later this spring and summer. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Discussions about a road into the far north were featured Wednesday at Queen's Park. Kiiwetinoong MPP Sol Mamakawa squared off against Minister Greg Rickford on the consultations that are taking place. Mamakawa says the road and other projects associated with it, including the development of the Ring of Fire, will have an unchangeable impact upon the lives of the people who live in that area. And while he admits there would be economic benefits for residents, he accused the province of rushing the environmental assessments and not engaging in proper consultation.
First Nations that have concerns about the Ring of Fire and want more cautious approach are not being heard. Will Ontario ensure that development in Treaty 9 territories happen with free, prior, and informed consent with all First Nations affected?
We have two Indigenous communities leading the environmental assessment processes for the Corridor to Prosperity, Mr. Speaker. We understand that there's more communities that might be interested in this. We don't actually build mines, Mr. Speaker. We put those communities in that region in the best position possible to make decisions for what that region could be. The potential, as the member finally has alluded to, holds for tremendous economic prosperity done right.
Rickford says the government wants to facilitate what he calls the Corridor to Prosperity, which will see road access, improved healthcare access, broadband internet access, and overall improvement to the conditions in the community. Officers with the OPP in the Scriber area were able to bring home the bacon following a call for assistance to round up some runaway piglets. It's believed these little piggies got out of their trailer at a truck turnaround near Scriber on Thursday. Officers came to the scene on Friday and engaged in a brief 45-minute foot chase before the animals were tired out and snuggled up for a snooze in the backseat of the cruiser. They were then taken to a hobby farm in Rossport area. The owners of the hobby farm later returned to where they were first located and found two more piglets. The province is rolling out a new program geared towards supporting northern municipalities that provide fire services outside of their boundaries. Ontario Solicitor General Sylvia Jones made the announcement in Comrie late last Saturday, and as Vasilios Bells reports, within 24 hours, the program was active.
The new program will reimburse northern municipalities that provide fire protection services for areas without any services of their own, up to $50,000 annually. Along with this, municipalities can apply for backlog reimbursement back to April 2021. The calls that can be reimbursed include structure fires, carbon monoxide related incident, search and rescue, vehicle collisions off of provincial highways, and hazardous material requests. Solicitor General Sylvia Jones says at this point the government is unsure exactly how much municipalities in the region will be seeking to be reimbursed, but stressed the importance of a program such as this.
When a neighboring municipality wants to step up and help their neighboring community, whether it's unincorporated or through a mutual aid agreement, it's really important that we acknowledge that as a government and in no way discourage that act of assisting people in need.
The announcement comes after many rural and northern municipalities have been seeking provincial support to be able to provide these fire services to other municipalities. Deputy Fire Marshal with Ontario's Ministry of the Solicitor General Tim Beckett was also present for the announcement in Conmee and provided more details about the reimbursement.
What we'll see is a per hour cost reimbursed to the municipality per apparatus for the first hour, and then it goes to a per half hour cost afterwards. So it's around $510 per hour per vehicle that would be reimbursed, and then at the hourly rate. So, a long call could be substantial money to a community.
The program will be administered by Ontario's Fire Marshal and run through the Northern Fire Protection Program. Vasilios Bellos, TVT News.
Coming up after the break, Terrace Bay enjoys some fun in the snow before the big melt. Despite the wintry blast we all experienced this week, spring is officially here. And this past weekend was the last chance for Terrace Bay's Winterfest to truly be a winter festival, with hundreds of residents gathering at a frozen golf course to celebrate the end of the winter season. Adam Riley reports.
The sun was shining in the sky for the last official day of winter, making it the perfect day for residents and visitors in Terrace Bay to celebrate the annual Winterfest. Normally held on the Family Day long weekend, COVID restrictions forced the event to a later date. But Mayor Jody Davis says despite the delay, it was still a perfect event.
Staff looked at it and they said, we can make something happen, and they did. And I got to give a lot of credit to the staff for doing this in short notice, and all the vendors coming in on short notice. So it's made for a great day.
The temperature that day ended up pushing its way into the plus 11 range, which was great for many, but not so much for the La Francophone Club, which was operating at Cabana Sucre and had to change its initial plans of a French-Canadian classic, Sugar and Snow.
We couldn't spread our toffee on the snow because the snow wasn't kind of good enough for it, and the temperature. And so anyways, but we managed, and the idea of having a snow cone, a maple syrup snow cone.
Among the many activities, aside from the sweet treats, attendees had the options to go painting, roast marshmallows, go sliding, or even dog sledding.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. I liked the dog sled, and the tubing was really fun. I liked all the activities. The bouncy castle.
The bouncy castle. Did you bounce pretty high?
Yes.
Following all the fun in the sun, residents later gathered in the Simcoe Plaza, where a spectacle of fireworks capped off the festivities for another year. Adam Riley, TBT News.
And that wraps up this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. Thank you so much for joining us.